to 31 Days of Terror 2023, day number 25. And today I am joined by the wonderful Your Ghost Stories. Your Ghost Stories is a paranormal podcast blending guest interviews with thought-provoking discussions. Hosted by Nigel and Jamie, two lifelong friends with an insatiable curiosity for all things supernatural. Together, they take you on a captivating journey through the unknown, delving deep into the stories of hauntings, UFOs, and other unexplained phenomena. Join them for spine-tingling stories with a humorous and easy listening edge that will leave you further questioning what lies beyond. I joined Jamie and Nigel for one of their episodes and I had an absolute blast. And then, of course, I had to invite them on to Real Life Ghost Stories. If you are somebody who enjoys listening to people's paranormal experiences, then this podcast is definitely for you. In this particular episode, we get deep, we get dark, we get meaningful, we get emotional. It was a whole range of things that happened in this episode, a whole range of emotions, and I think it's just a testament to the fact that Jamie and Nigel are determined to be authentic podcasters and authentic when they're talking about the paranormal. Also, they're just really good crack, so they're definitely worth a listen. All the links to listen to Your Ghost Stories will obviously be in the description of this episode. As always, this was recorded on StreamYard, so the audio quality is slightly different to what you might be used to, but it's absolutely fine, totally listenable. I don't know why I keep saying that every time, because I know the audio's fine, but still, just in case anybody is wondering, I still feel the need to say it. Go and find Your Ghost Stories wherever you listen to ghost stories, and I hope you enjoy the episode. And I am joined today in the virtual studio by the wonderful Jamie and Nigel from Your Ghost Stories. Hello, who are you? Why are you here? What do you do? Tell me about yourselves.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It's a total pleasure to be here. I'm Jamie, and this is my friend Nigel.
Hi, I'm Nigel.
We've been friends for about 10 years, just over 10 years, and we know each other from playing in bands. We're in a band called Standing Like Statues, and played music together for a long, long time. Yeah, we just both have this love for weird things and the paranormal, I guess.
So how did you guys discover that you were both into the paranormal? Because it's a kind of a weird thing to find out about each other, isn't it? And when you find this fellow spooky person, you end up being like, oh, a kindred spirit.
I think it actually started with, I remember we was around one of our friends' house, and I got started talking about like aliens and like UFO videos on YouTube. And I remember there was this one of, back in the day, it was of Obama's security guard. And it was like, it was probably like fake, but it's this really weird guy who was looking left and right really quickly. And then I remember talking to Jamie about it, and he started telling me things. So that was like the precursor. That was like, opening the door to talking about ghosts and God knows what else further on down the line. That's from what I remember anyway.
And very important question, and the most important question, the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. What is your favorite horror film and why?
So one of my all-time favorites probably has to be the original Exorcist. Maybe a pretty boring one, but there's a reason behind it. So, I watched it when I was way, way too young. I was probably like 10 years old or something. Yeah, not good. And me and my friend thought it was a good idea. And I think my stepdad at the time had it on VHS. And we just thought it was a good idea. So we went upstairs to my bedroom, put it in, and absolutely scared the shit out of us. I think we got up to the bit where she's laying in bed with the cross, doing things she shouldn't be doing. And something a 10-year-old should not be seeing. Yeah, we got to that point and we both got so scared, and we just both bolted for the stairs. And I remember us just like tumbling down the stairs together, because we were just trying to get down the stairs as fast as possible. And but yeah, just because of that, I think it's got a big place in my heart. And I think that's kind of sparked my love for the paranormal and horror.
I can imagine being 10 years old and being like, what is she doing with that cross? Oh my God, on top of everything else that's terrifying about that film. And that film is still terrifying, even to this day. And I really don't think there's been an exorcism possession film that has ever topped it. I really don't think there has.
With me, growing up, one of my sort of like childhood friends, he always had, I think he had like cable, but then he had like the dodgy cable that you didn't pay for as well. So it was like we had all these like American like horror films, and I remember like really random obscure ones. Like, have you heard of a film called Dr. Giggles? Oh, it's about
No.
so I think there was quite a few of them actually, but basically the whole film is about a doctor. It's called Dr. Giggles because he goes around killing people. What's this like killed them? He just goes like and it's so stupid. But we was in stitches most of the time watching like all these like random films and stuff like that. But it's really hard to say a favorite horror film, but the one I enjoyed off the top of my head was coming to me was a film called The Ritual. I think it's a group of men, like friends in, I think it was Norway or something, gone hiking, and they decided to take a shortcut through the forest, and then it all goes wrong from there. I really enjoyed that one. But yeah, it's really hard for me to say a favorite, so I'll probably have to go with that because that's just one that comes to my head.
The Ritual is really, really good. And I remember watching it for a film review a couple of years ago and really loving it. There's a bit where he walks into the house, I think, and there's like some sort of some like a person like kneeling in the middle of the room, like praying or whatever, and it freaked the shit out of me. But after we watched it, one of my friends who is like a fully grown big burly man watched it, and he was coming to our house to watch WrestleMania, and he arrived at the door. It was nighttime, and he arrived at the door, and he was like, and I was like, "Oh my god, what's wrong with you?" And he was like, we just watched The Ritual, and I had to walk through town on my own," and he had sprinted through town because he had watched The Ritual, and it had freaked him out so much. So that's a good one. Totally get it. And if people haven't watched it, they definitely need to watch it because it's so good. Do you have like a favorite? As because you saying Dr. Giggles, which I definitely need to look up because I've never heard of that. Do you have a favorite like bad horror film aside from Dr. Giggles? Obviously,
I can't remember the name of the horror film per se, but I just remember there was a scene. This is like back in the day where it must have been like in the late 80s when visual effects were just like they were all done like manually. And I remember one scene of this, I think it was this killer or something, and he got hold of someone and he put his head in the deep fat fryer, and it was so, I can't remember what that film was called, but I just remember like bursting into laughter with my mates because just how bad it looked at the time and stuff like that. And I can't remember what that bloody film's called.
It's Sleepaway Camp, isn't it?
Is it that?
I think it is Sleepaway Camp. That is a cult classic, and that whole film is horrendous. It's so bad, but also brilliant.
The Evil Dead, where he cuts his hand off and then it's running around giving him the finger and everything like that. It's just stupid things that at the time, like, yeah, it has got a sense of horror to it, but at the same time, is that like comedian like bit. Hellraiser, that was one that that kind of freaked me out though. That was one that I remember that really freaked me out with like the box thing and grabbing that woman and ripping all their skin off and stuff like that. That creeped me out because I was like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, what is happening?
There was one film I watched a few years ago that, you know, I've seen my fair share of horrors, but this one just, I thought really was just so fucked up. And I haven't watched it since. I haven't brought myself to be able to do it. Midsommar. I think it was on Netflix. Have you seen it? Have you seen it, Nudge?
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, it's a good film, but like I watched it and it was just one of them ones it just finished. I was just sat there like my head was just like exploded. I was like, that was just like so like intense and weird and dark.
Yeah, it's the film with Florence Pugh is in it, and she has that big flower crown. And it's that really famous meme, but I remember watching that film and I very controversially wasn't a massive fan of it. And I actually think I just didn't get it. I think it's one of those ones that I need to go back and rewatch because I just didn't understand or I wasn't in the headspace to like fully appreciate it or get it properly. Because everyone's always like, no, it's so good. But I need to go back and rewatch it, I think.
I thought it was good, but I don't think I don't think I fully understood it. Like, I don't know if they were like tripping balls or what. I don't know what was, but one of the scenes that really I found just too much was when there was about 20 women all sitting together and one of the women was pregnant. I don't want to give too much away, but basically all the women were breathing in unison with her, and it was just I don't know, that didn't probably the way I've described it doesn't sound that creepy, but
it is.
Watching it was just like, this is so uncomfortable to watch. So I guess, the person that made that film did their job.
So you guys are here because you have a podcast called Your Ghost Stories. Can you tell me, I mean, it pretty much does what it says on the tin, but can you tell me the premise of Your Ghost Stories? What is the general makeup of your episodes?
Yeah, so Your Ghost Stories is a show where we like to document paranormal stories from around the world and bring on guests. So the stories are told directly from the mouth, of the person that experienced it.
Yeah, I'm not very good at reading out people's stories, as we've had a few emails where I've tried to read them out, and they're always, got really long names, or really, like, for instance, the Welsh one, I couldn't pronounce any of those names. But it's just it's just a bit more of a connection when you've got someone reliving it, because of course you can hear it in their voice, and it's more convincing. Well, they're more convincing telling their story than I ever would be telling their story. So that's one thing that I really wanted, sort of like when me and Jamie were first talking about it, I was like, we definitely need to get people on. But yeah, it's not everyone wants to come on and tell their story. So we've got to kind of do a bit of both, really. But yeah, definitely, I'm enjoying it so far.
Because that's what I was going to say. It's one thing to invite people to share their stories, but it's another thing to say, will you come on the show and actually talk about it in your own voice? Have you found that people are kind of reluctant to do that because they don't want to be on the podcast, or they're afraid of being ridiculed? Or
I have some friends that have like stories and stuff like that, and they I was like, told me stories over the years, and I was like, oh, do you remember you told me that story? You should come on my podcast and tell me. No, I'm not doing that. I was like, oh, okay. So I think there is like a little bit of like hesitancy, because it's whether or not they think it's like we're doing it live there on the spot, and whether or not they can't, like, if they mess anything up. But I don't know. I've got one friend who does have a few stories. I'll keep asking him, and eventually he'll say yes. So
that was our first tactic, was kind of use our friends and family, because everyone knows somebody with a ghost story, and we know tons of people with ghost stories, and us ourselves have our own ghost stories. So yeah, our first kind of tactic was just to get everyone we know to come and share their ghost stories, and then try and branch out and reach out into the larger community, and keep documenting these stories and sharing these stories, because they're just so fascinating. And throughout history, there's been ghost stories forever, for as long as it's been text has been written, there's been document of ghost stories. So yeah, it's just a fascinating thing, and we want to keep that ongoing. And maybe with technology getting better, we can discover in our lifetime what's going on. Who knows?
yeah, and I think it's kind of important to point out as well, because that you guys take a kind of a similar stance to what I do on the podcast, in that you're not here to try and debunk people's stories, right? You're not here to be like, well, that can't have happened because of this, this, and this. Because I do think sometimes people hear about podcasts like Your Ghost Stories and they think, oh, I'd love to do that. But they are really worried that somebody's going to go, oh, well, that's a ridiculous story. That's, that can't possibly be true. But that's not what you guys do, right?
Not at all. And when we talk about ghost stories, we call it ghost stories. We don't necessarily mean it's some floaty, misty figure in the corridor. Like, we don't actually know what a ghost is. Nobody knows what a ghost is. And that's what we kind of want to look into further. Yeah, we're just looking to discover what the meaning of a ghost is. Because is it something in our mind, or is it something physical, or is it something spiritual, or we're on the path as the same as you and the same as everyone else in this field, looking for an answer, I guess.
And I was going to say as well that yeah, if people feel like they're going to be pulled apart, then they're not going to want to come forward. But yeah, we just we try to be as respectful as we can. Sometimes things just sound so hilarious that you're told, but yeah, we're not there to sort of pull anyone apart, or like knock them down or anything. It's everyone's got an experience, got something to say, regardless of how crazy it can be. So we just try to keep an open mind most of the time.
So did you guys have a ghost story that like terrified you as a child? Because I feel like a lot of us spooky people who are doing paranormal podcasts and general paranormal stuff, we've been spooky people since we were kids. So did you guys have that particular story that really shaped your love of the paranormal?
Well, I don't know about one that shaped the love of my paranormal, and it wasn't necessarily a ghost story, but I remember being really young, and I nagged my mum. I just had to look this up because I remembered what it was called, but I just had to look it up. But I nagged my mum and dad. They were watching this film, and I didn't want to go to bed. And I was like, "Can I watch it? Can I watch it? Can I watch it?" And they were like, "No, you shouldn't watch it." Anyway, I badgered them, and I ended up watching it. And this film was called Within the Rock, and from memory, I think it was about a mining operation on Mars or something, and they unleashed this monster, and it was going around killing people, and it scared the absolute living daylights out of me to the point that I thought this creature was real. I mean, when I had a look on the photos, like a quick look on it, it just looks so. It was 1996, I think, and it's so awful. But in terms of like ghost stories, there was one that was going around near where I lived, and that was about at night time when someone was driving around the country roads at night. They would sometimes come across a car coming towards them, and it would speed up, and you'd see these two headlights, and it would speed up, but then it would go onto your side of the road and drive through you. And I just remember hearing that as a young age, and then being in the car, always looking out for sort of like when we're going down those dark country roads, looking out for cars coming towards us and stuff like that. But and then I always hear this story, like this urban legend of like someone escaping from a loony bin, and a car pulls over the side of the road, and the husband gets out to check what's going on, and the woman sitting in the car hears a load of banging. Oh, I wonder what that is. Gets out, and then this guy has cut her husband's head off and banging it on the roof of the car. And I've heard that so many times. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen where I grew up. But it was those sort of like stories and those things that really sort of enticed me. And also as well, like my mum used to have like a book in the cabinet, and it had loads of different stories in there. And I remember there was this one picture. It was a picture of like someone has painted it, and it was a picture of this devil, and it had a face on its arsehole. And my mum goes, "See, that's where the saying 'talking out your arse' comes from." And it was just all these really random things like that have just like stuck in my mind and just made me intrigued about like ghosts and talking out your arsehole.
Do you know what? It's so when you say that, like it literally transports me back to my childhood. So when I was really young, I was like way too young to stay up and watch it. One of my older brothers let me stay up and watch The Silence of the Lambs. And I was traumatized. And a couple of days later, my other brother showed me this newspaper article. And on the newspaper article, it described some man as being a woman eater. And obviously, I didn't understand that meant in a sexual way. And my brother was like, "See? People really do eat people, and you're going to be next." I still remember it to this day, and I'm 33 years old, and it traumatized me. I can vividly remember being fucking petrified that some random man was just going to eat me. And I was like, why is nobody really worried about this? Because I am terrified.
Also, growing up, did you ever play a board game that was called Atmosphere?
I have it in my house right now.
Yeah, my mum and dad. It's probably at my mum's. It's probably missing all the parts. But yeah, I remember playing that as a kid. That scared the shit out of me. I don't know which one you had. Did you have the creepy gatekeeper?
Yes.
You say, "I am your gatekeeper." Yes, my gatekeeper.
We played it about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. Hideously drunk one New Year's Eve. Me and my friends played it, and I was traumatizing, because you know when you're drunk and everything seems way more terrifying than it actually is. And then we played it again sober, and it was still pretty terrifying. I was like, I can see how this was really popular, but I still have it.
Jamie, have you played it before?
No, how does this game work?
Oh, we definitely got to get together at some point to play Atmosphere.
What's like the general gist of the game?
There's like a DVD to go with it, and you put the DVD in, and you have to get around the board. But this guy is on the DVD, and he's like this terrifying man in like a a cloak and a hood, and it's some sort of cult thing, and he's the gatekeeper, and he gives you all these tasks, and it'll be like, you have to leave the room, and then when you come back in, no one will be speaking to you anymore, and you don't know why nobody's speaking to you. And and if you ask why is nobody speaking to me, then you have to go back 5 spaces, and then in the middle, you have to put all of your deepest, darkest fears, and then when you get to the middle, you have to face your deepest, darkest fears. And it's so cheesy and so like 90s, late 80s, but it's so good. It's so good.
And that music, as the timer's running out, that music,
Yeah.
God, you're like, I got it, oh, my nightmare's gonna come true.
So good.
We'll have to play it, Nige. We'll have to get it out for Christmas.
I actually think, well, it's at my parents', but this is how old it is. It's on VHS, and I don't think there's any way to play it anymore. Well, probably find it on YouTube, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely on YouTube. 100%. We checked. So, Jamie, what was yours when you were a kid? What was your story that traumatized you?
So I had loads of things that actually happened to me as a child. You can hear like pretty much all of them and Nigel's things, Nigel's stories in detail over on our first ever episode. But the one that really terrified me when I was young, again, I was probably not long after I'd probably watched The Exorcist, to be fair. But I'm telling you, this happened, and it terrified me. And even now, like thinking about it, it just gives me goosebumps. So I was house sitting with my mum and my little sister and my little sister's dad, so my stepdad. At the time, we were living in Southend, and my stepdad's sister, they were going somewhere on holiday and basically needed someone to house sit. And they'd always told us, leading up to the point we were house sitting, I don't know why, I'd always overhear conversations as a child of them talking about how their house was haunted, and we never really went there much. I don't think I'd ever went there before kind of this experience, but we went there. I stayed there with so it was actually my middle sister and my youngest sister, and I was sharing a bunk bed with my middle sister. We were just chilling, watching films and stuff, and everything was alright. It's a nice house, fairly modern, so it wasn't kind of scary or anything. But then, yeah, it got to bedtime, say, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock. We went upstairs, and my sister went to the bathroom just to get ready for bed, and I went into the bedroom, and I just remember just feeling nothing but fear in this bedroom. And I think what was playing on the back of my mind was knowing that the family that lived there saying that this house was haunted and they'd had stuff happen to them. So being a young kid, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was just so scared something was going to happen to me. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't want to have an experience. And I remember looking out the window as a summer's night, it's pitch black. I remember looking out into the garden, just pitch black, and just thinking, oh, please, like, Kirsty, my sister, please hurry up. Like, come out the bathroom. I remember walking to the bathroom, knocking on the door and being like, please, like, can you hurry up? Like, just let's go to bed. Like, I just don't want to be alone. Like, can you hurry up? And then I walk back into the bedroom, I'm like pacing around, like just thinking, just it's building up inside me, just more and more and more fear. And yeah, it got to the point where I just looked out the window and I just was like, all right, I'm just going to wait here and wait for my sister and just try and be calm. And all of a sudden, right in front of me, so there was a net curtain, like a white net curtain. And all of a sudden, no windows open or nothing. It was like two hands grabbed this net curtain right in front of me, lifted it all the way to the top, held it for like a few seconds, and then it just dropped right in front of me. I just froze and just, I think I started crying and I sprinted out of the room, just so scared. And my mum was downstairs and I just went downstairs crying my eye out and, said what just happened. And, she's downplaying like, oh no, it was the wind, nothing happened. But even now, I remember seeing it so vividly. Just, it's like two hands grabbed this net curtain, slowly lifted it up, held it, and it just dropped in front of me. And to this day, that was one thing that I just can't get over and gave me kind of undeniable proof in ghosts or spirits. or maybe it was a manifestation of my fear. I have no idea, but yeah, crazy.
But even if it was a manifestation of your fear, that's still incredible. Do you know what I mean? If it was like some sort of energy that you were given off that caused whatever this to happen, like that's still crazy that could happen. But it's, I mean, it sounds like your intuition or whatever, you know, you have those gut instincts, that your gut instincts were like, don't be in this room, you don't be in here, it's not good for you, you need to get out. And I don't know, it just goes to show you need to listen to those gut instincts and that intuition all the time.
Yeah, you're right. And throughout my life, I've always listened to my intuition. I've always felt pretty intuitive in certain situations, where I just kind of feel trouble coming or something's going to happen, and you just have that feeling inside you. But yeah, but I think that also can play off as anxiety as well. And a lot of the time, you feel anxious and you don't know why. But
Yeah.
is it because maybe we're slightly tuned off or tuned out of this frequency, or who knows?
Yeah, it's so hard to know, and it's so hard to find the kind of delineation between what is just anxiety. I say that very flippantly, because anxiety can be crippling for some people, and what is your intuition genuinely telling you there's something here that you can't see that is going to harm you. So I guess people are going to be interested about you guys. Where are you in the world? And I know that, Nigel, you've said, you know, that you had some local stories and you've kind of gone into a little bit of detail about them. Where are you in the world? And is there a ghost story or a legend about your local area that you guys love?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cambridge, and there's one story that's really stuck with me, and I really enjoy retelling this story, especially to friends or people that have not been to Cambridge. So there's a pub in the middle of Cambridge, really, really old. It's called the Eagle. And if you go to this pub, on the first level, it's also a hotel. And on the first level of this pub, there's a window, and it's always open. You know, winter, spring, autumn, summer. This window is always open. And the story goes that there was a young, I can't remember the date or anything, but you can Google this story. It's very famous. There was a young girl and a boy, and they were caught in a fire, and they couldn't escape. And yeah, so the story goes that the spirits of these children, or one of the children, always wants this window to be open. And if apparently the window closes, like if a guest stays there, it's written into, I believe it's the deed, or it's written into some kind of contract with guests or something, that they must keep the window open, that no matter what. And apparently if the window is closed, you know, strange stuff starts happening in this room.
I love old stories like that where, for whatever reason, whether or not people believe it doesn't matter, but the legend is that it's like written into the deeds, or it's part of the rules about being in that place, that whether you believe it or not, that window has to stay open. The end. I love stuff like that.
I've actually got one, and I was thinking about it today, actually. It too involves a window. I grew up in a town called St. Neots, which is still in sort of Cambridgeshire. And in St. Neots, there was two main secondary schools. So you had like Long Sands and Ernov. And I really wanted to go to Ernov. And I think there was some huge rivalry between the kids. They just didn't get on. So, for instance, one school used to finish at 3:15, whereas the other one used to finish at 4. But they got to start a little bit later, just so there was no clashing. So I didn't actually know anyone from Long Sands until I got my first job in McDonald's. Met some people who were at that school, and it was going to like house parties with them, and like everyone's talking about ghost stories. And then they told me this. They told this story of in the Long Sands school, because it's a 2 or 3 story school, and they told this story of that there was one of the teachers there, and sadly they hung themselves in one of the classrooms, and then they were found, I think, either the next day by like the caretaker or something, but they'd hung themselves in that school. I haven't dug into it, but I do think that someone might have done that. And they say the urban legend is that on certain nights when the time is just right, the light will come on, and you'll see the silhouette of someone hanging. That was always in my mind, at the back of my mind, because the school was right by the train station. And when I walked home, I'd have to walk past this school. Anyway, years gone by, and I'd just come back from a gig in Hitchin. It was the last train, so it was really late at night. And I was walking down this long sort of like path towards the school, and I just so happened to sort of like, I looked up at the school, and all of a sudden, I saw a light turn on, and this is gone like it's gone midnight. So one of the rooms, the light turns on, and I'm thinking, what the actual fuck? What the fuck? I'm on my own. It's completely pitch black around there, and I just want to get home as quick as I can. And so the path would veer into this like kind of an alleyway, and it was an alley what was between the school and a load of back of these houses. But the thing was, they didn't have any streetlights down this alleyway, and it's probably because of all these gardens back on the back of this alleyway. So I stood there for a moment, just looking at the alleyway, and I thought, well, I want to get home because the alternative is to go all the way around. It's going to take me even longer to get home. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to run. So I started running down this alleyway, and little did I know that someone let their dog out at the same time to go, to the toilet. There's me running down this alleyway, and all of a sudden this dog just goes, wow, scared the absolute living shit out of me. I banged into the fence, fell on the floor, and I put a hole in one of my favorite pair of skinny jeans. Honestly, I didn't see any silhouette or anyone swinging. I just saw this light turn on. I don't know why it turned on, but yeah. So that was like kind of an urban legend, whether or not I know it's true. But I definitely saw that light coming in the school, just one light, and it was weird. If I didn't know that story beforehand, I probably wouldn't have thought nothing of it, and I wouldn't have ruined my pair of skinny jeans. But
That's the power of a good story, like you said, ordinarily the light went on, you probably wouldn't even think twice about it, but because you knew the story, you're like, shit, and then you ruined a pair of your favorite skinny jeans. And look, having your favorite pair of skinny jeans when you were younger was very important. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way, like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it? So, those conversations that you need to have with people that might be a little bit difficult, but they're very necessary, and you just can't find the courage to do it. It might even be as simple as trying to fall asleep at night and your racing thoughts are keeping you awake. You just can't turn that brain off. Or it might be like the paralyzing fear of trying to make a big decision. The reality is that sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, and therapy helps you to figure out what it is that is holding you back. I've had moments where I've talked to my therapist about situations that have been going on with my family, situations that have been going on with my friends, and I cannot tell you how helpful it is to have somebody to talk through those situations with, no matter how big or small. And ultimately, I found that often talking through these particular situations can give me the clarity that I need to make a decision about what it is I need to do. And listen, if you're thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and to suit your schedule. You get matched with a therapist based on a brief questionnaire. And guess what? If you don't click with that person, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Visit betterhelp.com/reallifeghoststories today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/reallifeghoststories. So has doing your ghost stories, has it made you guys feel more in touch with your spiritual side, or kind of more interested in the paranormal?
It's definitely sparked my interest back up in the paranormal. I've always been fascinated, but now hosting a podcast, it puts this world at the forefront of my reality. So it's just always there on my mind. I'd love to be more in touch with my spiritual side. And I guess, speaking to so many people on topics such as spirituality, religion, faith, good and evil, it definitely makes me think more. And it's great to be able to learn more and feel, I guess, a deeper connection with my spiritual side just from doing this podcast. So yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I'd probably say about the same thing. For my experiences over the years, it's not always been constant. So I'll experience, when I was little, I used to experience a lot of frightening things, and then for quite a few years it'd be nothing, and then something will start up again, and then nothing, and it's not always something that's always happening. And since doing this podcast with Jamie, I'm sort of now starting to listen to more things and look into different ghost stories, and I'm sort of now feel like I'm becoming more aware, and I'm at that point where I'm kind of expecting something to happen, like in my house or at work or something like that. Because sometimes I could be in a place at work and in an old building or something, and I could be all on my own. And I don't know, I don't want to experience something when I'm at work, something going flying across the room or something going bang. But yeah, so it's definitely made me more sort of like open-minded and aware of sort of like where I am at certain times. So especially at night time as well, like around where I live, it's like, well, they do have street lights, but because it's a small little it's not really a town, it's like a village, it gets really dark here. And especially my other half, where her parents live, they don't have any neighbors. Well, they do, but they're farmers. That's their neighbor, huge open field. And when we go to visit and we leave of an evening, if I've gone in my own car, I have to sort of like drive out and have to close the gate myself. And all I've got is my car headlights on and just blackness all around me. And it's probably because I've been listening to a lot of Bigfoot shit. I'm like, close that gate and just like running into my car and locking it. Last year I wouldn't really give them the crap, but yeah, now I'm more sort of like hyper aware of like, is there anything or anyone watching me?
Sorry, I imagine there's also a party that's like, but is it good for content? Yeah.
Yeah.
What also doesn't help about your partner's house, Nige, is that witch thing in the window by the gate.
Oh, yeah, yes. So,
This
yeah.
prop model thing. That's pretty terrifying.
In a parents' where they live, in their garage, it's got a window, and for whatever reason, they've got like this like life-size like witch thing. And they obviously, I think they've done it on purpose. They're propped up by the window so that if you're there at night and if you're snooping around and you don't really know the place, you're going to see this face looking at you from the window, and it is kind of like creepy.
First time I got in my car, I was like, "What the fuck? Like, what's that?"
Yeah, they put it outside their door on Halloween sometimes. So it's pretty funny.
I love that energy. Just purposefully to freak people out. I've got loads of weird shit around my house as well. And when new people come in, they're like, "The fuck is this? So where am I?" And I'm like, "Oh, don't ask. Somebody gave it to me, or I found it somewhere, or whatever." So why did you guys then? I know that you talked about how you wanted to kind of explore like different ghost stories from around the world with the podcast, but like, what was the moment where you guys decided, I think we should actually put this into podcast form?
It was probably about 7 months ago. We were just having dinner with our partners. I think it was just at my house, and we were just chatting, sharing our ghost stories, our experiences throughout our lives. And me and Nigel have shared a few. We've known each other a long time. We've been on ghost hunts. We've had an experience kind of together. We just kind of decided overnight, really. I was laying in bed and I was just like, man, I'd love to do a podcast with Nige. And I think around that time, I'd actually started listening to your podcast, Emma, which I'd obviously found really inspiring. And yeah, just listening to these ghost stories was just really cool. And I think I just texted Nige the next day and was like, "Hey man, like as a singer, I've already got this mic and I've got stuff to record a podcast." I was like, "Hey man, do you want to buy an SM7B and start a ghost podcast?" And I think within like a week or two, we'd had the premise for our first episode and got it up and running.
I was like, "How much for that mic? How much?" Yeah, but it's really good. It's really good. Yeah, but how much?
And then it kind of becomes weirdly all consuming. I think that's what people don't realize. But even when you started as a hobby, and then, because I started out as a hobby and all of that, and then suddenly it's like you were saying, you're just thinking about it all the time, and you're thinking, "Oh, that might be a good story for the podcast. And who can I get onto the podcast next?" Just becomes all consuming.
Yeah, that's true. I'll definitely find myself more sort of like now thinking about stuff like that, and just sort of like trying to go through like my brain and rack my brain about all the different sort of experiences I've had over the years and the different stories that friends have told me, and sort of reach out to them and be like, "Do you want to come tell your story,
please?"
Yeah, we need content. Please come tell your story.
You guys have kind of shared a little bit about your own personal paranormal experiences, but have you another paranormal experience that you want to share?
Yeah, so one of the weirdest ones for me. So a lot of stuff's happened in my mum's house. She still lives there. Myself and my younger sister have experienced things there. But yeah, one thing can't explain to this day, and it freaks me out. My mum's ex-husband was living there at the time. Well, then husband, now ex-husband. And me and him never really saw eye to eye. we never got on really. So I was a grown adult at the time. Well, I was about 24. But with the state of the UK, it's it's hard to move out of your parents' house. But I'm out now, baby. I'm out. Anyway, I spent a lot of time alone in my room, just kind of avoiding everyone, just kind of waiting for the next day, going to work and coming back and going to sleep. And anyway, yeah, I was sitting on my laptop, I had my door shut, and all of a sudden, it's just a really small. Just to try and set the scene, it's a really small house. So there's 3 bedrooms and a really small landing, like you couldn't swing a cat on this landing. So you could just you just know if somebody's upstairs. I had no music on, nothing, and I was just sitting there in silence, typing away on Facebook or whatever, on YouTube, and all of a sudden there were 3 knocks on my bedroom door. Jamie, come downstairs now. And it was my stepdad's voice. And straight away I was like, oh, that was weird. We barely even spoke, so like, why would he angrily come and knock on my door and tell me to come downstairs? I straight away was like, why? What's the matter? And there was just silence. I said it again. Yeah, why? What do you need? Again, silence. And I was waiting to just hear, footsteps of him going down the stairs, or him going into his bedroom or whatever. But no. So anyway, I was like, oh, well, that was strange. Didn't really think much of it. I went downstairs and my mum was just sitting in the sitting room. And I said, what is it he wants? He just come and told me to come downstairs. Like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, nothing. Like, he's outside. I was like, so he didn't just come upstairs and knock on my door and tell me to come downstairs? And she was like, nope. I was like, oh, fair enough. Like, you must not have heard him. The sitting room's right next to the stairs, but she must not have just heard. She must have just missed it watching TV or whatever. So I went outside and he's down there in the shed. So I walk down there, knock on the door, and he opens the door and I'm like, yeah, what is it you want? And he's like, just looks at me blankly, like, what do you mean? I'm like, you literally just knocked on my door and you told me to come downstairs. And he was like, no, I didn't. And just to this day, like, I can't explain it. It was clear as day. Someone knocked on my door. His voice, told me to come. He told me to come downstairs in this kind of angry tone, and it wasn't him. And no one came upstairs. And I'm sure, Emma, sharing many ghost stories throughout your time, you've encountered stories of trickster spirits or spirits that can throw their voice, of loved ones, family members, or people you know. And yeah, I'm pretty certain that happened to me a few years ago.
I've had so many stories over the years of exactly that, where somebody will hear the voice of their mother, their father, their partner, their siblings, whoever it is, and it just can't have been or wasn't them. And it's interesting because, it's not like this happened in the middle of the night when you were half asleep. This was, you're sitting at your desk typing away, and then of course you're going to think, well, what does he want me for? You're not immediately going to think it's paranormal. My question about these sort of mimics or whatever they are is why.
Yeah, from what I've heard is maybe these tricksters or mimics are trying to pull you away from a certain situation or something that's about to happen, or yeah, they're trying to guide you or misguide you. Who knows?
Definitely is a creepy one. I don't know if you've seen there was a show on Netflix. I can't remember the actual name of it. But basically, I think it was like Netflix own one, but they were basically dramatizing stories that have been told to them. And there was an episode which was called like The Mimic, which was set in America, and it's the same thing where this entity was in this house, and it was a group of friends that were renting it, and one of the guys was in the basement, and so he shared the house with his friend who was a female, and I can't remember if there was another person, but anyway, so he's down there in the basement, and he thinks that his the housemate, who's this girl, who comes down the stairs, and then she's sort of like, she's in a dressing gown, and she drops her dressing gown, so she's naked, and he's like, oh, getting lucky here. And then he said they started making out, and then all of a sudden she, in front of him, started turning into like an old sort of like woman, and then like disappeared. And it absolutely freaked him out. And then the female who lived there, she was in the shower, and then just come out the shower, and there was this like weird sort of creepy man sort of thing crawling towards her. Yeah, and then I can't remember the rest of it, but apparently someone had killed themselves in there as well. And I have to remember what the name of this show was on Netflix, but it was like, it was like dramatizing real stories that had been told to them.
So what about you, Nigel? What do you have a paranormal experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So the house I grew up in, my parents still live there now. It's a 3-bedroom house. I used to experience some really really weird things in there. As a young kid, I used to have something used to sit on the end of my bed, and I would feel the pressure of a person sitting on the end of my bed, and the covers would go tight and pulled over me, and it just used to scare the absolute living crap out of me. So I remember one time I looked and there was nothing there, but the room was so cold. I know it's cliche, but if you've ever experienced your hair standing up on end all over your entire body, then you'll know what I mean.
It means that Ray the Demon Slayer is about.
Yeah, but
Emma, you need to hear the story about Ray the Demon Slayer after this.
You'll have to check out on the host stories. But one experience, there's many experiences that have happened in that house, not only to me but to the rest of my family. But I'll tell you one which happened to my nephew. I'm sorry if it goes a bit dark. I do apologize, but my oldest brother, I lost him in 2008 under really bad circumstances, and he left his son. And so it's my nephew. He's old now, but at the time he was about 5 years old. So he come to stay with all the trauma and everything that was going on. He come to stay with my mum and dad for a while. He used to say some really weird things when he was really young. And he used to say to my mum, "I've just seen Dad." She's like, "Hey?" She's like, "Yeah, I've just seen Dad." He come in and stood in the doorway and asked me how I was, and he told me not to worry, that everything's okay, and he's got a girlfriend. I don't know, he probably might not remember it. It might be too painful for him to remember it, but yeah, he used to say that, I've just seen my dad. It's there, and I'd be like, "There's no one there." And so yeah, that was one that would have been back in 2008. Yeah, he told us, like, when he was saying these things about, "Oh, I've just seen my dad." On the actual night that my brother died, my mum, she woke up. It was on the 1st of March, and she said she don't know why, but she was in bed, and all of a sudden she just woke up, and she couldn't get back to sleep, and she knew something wasn't right, something was wrong, but she was awake. And then in the that day is when they found out sort of like what had happened to my brother. It's gone quite dark, but it's been a huge part of my life. Something that I've had to sort of like work really hard to sort of like deal with. Although it was over about 15 years ago now. The pain never goes away, but you kind of get numb to it in a way. That's one of the things that I can't remember if I told you, if it was you who I told last time about my other brother, his girlfriend going to a medium and talking to a medium. She was there with her friend, and the medium said, "Oh, hang on, I've got someone here. He's barging his way through, and he keeps talking to me. He won't shut up talking, and he's been waiting 15 years to say something, but he needs to tell you something." This medium said that he knows you, but you don't know him, but he knows of you because of someone else, which was because she's dating my brother. And this woman said that he said, "And I know Mum's really unwell at the moment, but I'm there and I'm watching over. Everything's going to be okay." So this medium couldn't possibly know my family or what my mum's going through or anything like that. So it's one of these things that about the paranormal, which just again reinforces or like my belief that there is something there. Well, once we die or pass on, it's not just the end. It's not blackness. Why do we go through all these like experiences just for us to be met with a black screen at the end of it? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, sorry, I don't know why I'm getting out of breath. I'm probably getting a bit emotional, but
No, it's understandable. Of course, you're going to get emotional, and like you said, even if it is 15 years ago, it doesn't get any easier.
There's so many things that I could like the stories and about the house. I don't know what it is about the house, but it's not constant. Again, around the same time, back in like I think it was 2008, my nephew was staying over my mum and dad's. My mum used to when I used to stay over, she'd sleep on the sofa because she's not a very tall lady, so she could fit on the sofa, and so she used to sleep in the front room. And my other brother, who lived at home with us at the same time, his girlfriend sort of stayed over the night, and then she had work the next morning. She worked in a sort of like in a bakery, so she had to get up really early. So she told us that she went downstairs, and then she was in the hallway, and to get to the door, you got to walk past the door to the front room. And she said the door was slightly ajar, and she said the house was dead quiet upstairs. And as she comes downstairs, she said she can hear a conversation going on in the front room. She can hear people talking, and her first initial thought is that my mum has like left the TV on and she's fallen asleep with the TV on. And she said she's hearing this conversation, hearing these voices. Now she's getting closer to the door. She opens the door to look in, and then she said it just went absolutely silent. And my mum was there asleep on the sofa. TV wasn't on, and that creeps her out. So she quickly got out the house, locked up, and then went to work. And then told my brother when she got back, and then obviously told my mum. My mum's like, I don't remember nothing. I was asleep. And she's like, if someone was there, they're having a conversation and not including me, it's a bit rude, isn't it?
But I'd be like, I want to know the tea. Come on, I want to know the gossip. If you're having a chat, I want to be involved.
Yeah, the house is strange because it's not constant. It's not always all the time, and things usually happen to people who are sort of like visiting. When if I go, I'm going to go there on a weekend. I haven't felt nothing there for a very long time, but for quite a few years. But when I've had like ex-girlfriends in the past that have stayed over and stuff, they've had things happen. Like one was in the bath, and all of a sudden, both the taps to the sink just came on, like gushing water. It scared the life out of him. And another one who was playing the Xbox, and we had a bag of like jelly babies on the side. And I was like, I'm just going down to get a drink for us. So I went down to get a drink. And when I come back up, she's just like sitting in like a chair, like looking frozen. I was like, what's wrong? She goes, I just went to put my hand into the packet to get a jelly baby out, and the bag slid slowly across the desk away from my hand. And I could see it, like I could see how far away the bag was. And just by the look and the reaction on her face that something had happened that was, not normal. So it is a weird house. I don't know what it is.
It's funny that it happens to people who are visiting. That's mad.
Again, probably like the most terrifying experience. And to be honest, she's not a very nice person, so she probably deserves it. But an ex-girlfriend. At one point, we both lived at my mum's, and I can't remember where I was. I think I was either at work or I was doing something. But I remember her frantically calling me. I was like, oh God. So I was just ignoring it. I keep on calling me and ignoring it. And I finally get home, and then she's like, blah, 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 this has happened, and all that. And she finally tells me this story. So she'd gone to bed that night, and she said she's laying in bed. And like with these houses, above the door frame, there were like a little pane of glass. So I don't know why they did that, but there was like a pane of glass above the door, so that if someone had the light on in the landing, the light would come through into the bedroom, if you know what I mean. Put a little bit of like film up, like, do you know what you black car windows out with? My oldest brother had put that up against there to stop the light coming in as much, but you still got like a little bit of light in the room. And so she said she was in bed. I think she was like either falling asleep or something. And she said at the bottom of the bed, she said there was a figure standing there. And she said, Nigel, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you standing there? And she said, after saying that, it didn't move. So she's getting sort of like freaked out, and she's like, stop playing around. What are you doing? And then so the bed was up against the wall, and we had an extension lead plugged into the plug socket, which ran round the bed. And then we had it was plugged into like bedside lamp on the table next to the bed, but you had to put your hand between the bed and the wall to turn the switch on at the wall. So she's then put her hand between the bed and the wall and flicked the power switch, which turned the lamp on. As soon as she done that, she said the light blew instantly, which scared the shit out of her. And she said this figure was still standing at the bottom of the bed, and she said she shat herself, jumped out of the bed, ran past it, opened the door, and ran out it's sort of into the hallway and downstairs, and then shortly afterwards when I come in. But she said it was absolutely most creepiest thing. This I think she said it was like a bluish, blackish figure standing at the bottom of the bed and just standing there staring. She couldn't make out any features, but she just said it was the silhouette of a person, and that's why she got really scared, because she thought it was. Well, she was annoyed at first because she thought it was me who was like playing a trick, but yeah, clearly I wasn't there, and there was no one in that room. So, but yeah, that's one of the most creepiest stories someone has told me about my mum and dad's house, but I've not experienced anything visual.
I thought you were going to say that when she went to turn on the light, the figure disappeared, because that's usually how those stories end, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it obviously didn't.
She said there was this huge flash as the bulb like blew in the lamp, which was annoying because I didn't have any spare ones. But yeah, I suppose it's just the escalation of the fear of seeing something at the bottom of the bed and then trying to turn that light on for comfort, and it just immediately blowing. But yeah, that's just another story of that house. I don't necessarily think it's the house that's haunted. I think it's an energy that is there around my mum and dad, to be honest. So
yeah, maybe it is, and I still think it's wild that it just happens to people who are visiting. It's like whatever it is leaving your family alone and being like, no, they're fine,
Yeah.
but I am gonna be mischievous with people who come into the house.
Yeah, it's
no one's taken our jelly beans.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, final question for you guys. Where can people listen to the podcast? And also, do you have anything else to plug?
Yeah, sure. So you can find us at www.yourghoststoriespodcast.com. So we are a pretty new podcast. We're about 25 episodes in. So yeah, by following us or whatever, it helps us grow massively, and it helps us continue to do what we love and document and share these awesome stories and chat to amazing people from all around the world.
Yeah, and if you can, just leave like a review. If you're really enjoying the show, just like leave a review on Spotify. Can you do it on Apple as well? I'm not really tech savvy.
Yeah.
If you could leave a review, that would help us out.
Basically find us everywhere at Your Ghost Stories Podcast.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. You are both wonderful. And if you are listening to this, please make sure that you go and listen to Your Ghost Stories and give them as much love as humanly possible.